today we are making challah bread from scratch. Easy recipe, let's do this. Welcome back to Cooking with Kayla D. I'm Kayla and this is my husband Randy. My disclaimer. If you haven't done so, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you can get all the newest episodes available. But first, happy birthday to Mariah Buckley, our niece and our sister in the faith. She is turning dirty 30 today. Happy birthday, Mariah. We are so proud of you and the woman that you are. You have an amazing family, an amazing love for people, and the most amazing love for Jesus. We are so thankful that you are not only our family in Christ, but you are also our blood family here on earth. And I am so thankful to have married into this family. For your starting ingredients, you're going to need 2 eggs at room temperature, 1 tablespoon of honey or sugar, 1/2 tablespoon of yeast or 2 packets, 1 cup of warm milk. First off, you're going to want to put in your ingredients. I started with my eggs. After I got my eggs in, and make sure this is warm temperature, go ahead and add in the rest of your starter ingredients one by one. The reason you want to put honey or sugar in there is because your yeast needs to eat something in order to find out if it is active. Go ahead and blend those ingredients together. And once you have that well incorporated, then go ahead and add in your starter flour. Went ahead and added it in, and now we're going to continue to mix. If you do not have a hand mixer or a stand mixer, you can do this by hand. It is very easy. Use a fork or a whisk for those wet and small dry ingredients. Now you're going to cover this and let this rest for 10 minutes. For the rest of your ingredients, you're going to need 4 cups of flour, 1 tablespoon of salt, 1 cup of warm water, and 1 tablespoon of butter. Now you're going to go ahead after it's been 10 minutes and uncovered. You'll see it bubbly. That means your yeast is indeed active. So we can continue with our recipe. So I went ahead and added in the remaining amount of my flour. After you get that in, you'll want to go ahead and add in your salt and your water. Once you have that in there, go ahead and mix. You'll wait until after your dough is incorporated to add in your butter. That will be at the end. Once you have your dough incorporated and you have kneaded it by hand for about 10 minutes or with a mixer for 5, you're going to go ahead and add in that butter. I just had some whipped butter out, so I added that right in there. And then you go ahead and continue to mix this again until that butter is incorporated into your dough. Sometimes this may take a little bit because it is pretty oily, but it's actually a lot easier by hand to get it incorporated than it is in your mixer. I will say that, depending on how you look at it. Takes longer in your mixer, but you don't have to do the work. So after that, you want to take your dough out of your mixer, or if you're doing it by hand, you just want to knead it a few more times after your butter is well incorporated and get it into a form of a ball. I just kneaded mine 2 or 3 times, as you can see here, and then went ahead and I used my spray oil. You could also use butter or olive oil or whatever you have, but I went ahead and I sprayed my bowl that I mixed it in with the olive oil spray, and then I also sprayed it on top of my bread. To find out if you have kneaded your bread enough, you want to go ahead and lightly prick it with your thumb, just pressing down gently. If it comes back up, then it is ready to go ahead and rest and rise. If not, continue to knead it until that thumbprint does come back up. Now that I've got my ball all oiled down, I'm going to place the seam side down, and I'm going to cover this. You want to set this aside for 45 minutes to an hour until it doubles in size. Make sure to place it in a warm place. Next, you want to go ahead and uncover and punch that once it has doubled in size. I went ahead and got my little baking mat out here so it's a lot easier to use. You can just use this on your surface of your counter, whatever's easier for you. Since it has, I'm going to go ahead and knead it a few more times since it has risen, and go ahead and work that dough back into a tight ball. Once I have it into a tight ball, I'm going to go ahead and cut this and get ready to form our balls. This is for 2 large Challah bread loaves or 6 small Challah bread loaves. So I cut mine into 6 pieces to make 6 loaves of bread. I used 3 of these round balls for a separate recipe, my beer rock recipe. I will have the link right here to the left and also in the description area, because we didn't need that many loaves of bread, so we went ahead and just used half of the recipe as our dough base for our beer rocks. So after you have your balls all separated and sealed, you're going to take one of your balls, one of your 6 balls, and cut it into 3s again. So third, third, and third. This makes 1 loaf of bread, a small loaf of challah bread. And a lot of other countries in the Middle Eastern and Israel and stuff, they call it something else. But I grew up with it being called challah bread, so that is what I am calling it. And I think that's more of like an India way of how they call it, but don't quote me on that, I'm not sure. Anyways, you go ahead and roll it out a little bit, and then you want to fold it over, pinch it, and then you want to roll it again, kind of like you're doing a pretzel. You want to get it to about 12 inches in length. Once you have it to like 12 inches, then you're going to go ahead and set it aside and work on the other 2. Make sure that it is even as well as you can. Don't worry about being perfect on the ends, because those are going to get pinched and tucked anyway. After you have your 3, you're going to place them together on your sheet like that, pinch one end together, and now you're going to simply braid it. And you're going to do it just like this, and it's easier to do it one over at a time and move it around. Once you have it braided, then you're going to go ahead and pinch the other end and roll it under, and also roll that top one under. And see how beautiful that is? Set it aside and work on your next loaf of bread. We did 3, and we topped them with 3 different things, so you'll get to see that. It was pretty exciting, and you'll see how big they are. They end up being about as big as a French loaf of bread you get from the supermarket. So after you get them done, I put mine on parchment paper, and then you have to cover them and set them aside for 30 to 40 minutes in a warm place to rise. So I covered mine and set those aside. And at this time, you want to preheat your oven to 385 degrees Fahrenheit. I got some egg yolk out and mixed that up, and now I am gently brushing that onto the bread after it has risen. And we're going to go ahead and do that so we get a nice, beautiful, shiny coat. We want it to have that really shiny, glossy, dark brown, gorgeous color that you get when you buy bread from a wonderful bakery. Oh, it's just so nice, and it's just amazing. If you use the egg whites, it won't be as beautiful, but with just egg yolk, oh wow. So what I do is I use the egg yolk and I add a little bit of water. For every egg yolk I use, I put a tablespoon of water, cold water, into it, and I mix that together well with a fork. And then once I have it well blended, then I'll use my brush and I'll gently brush it on. You just want to be very gentle when brushing it on, because you don't want to poke holes in it or smush it or mess with the dough after it is risen up. You want it to keep its form and shape, so just be very gentle when doing this. After you have it all done, you can do as many toppings as you would like on it, or don't put any at all. We chose to do one with some white sesame seeds, so we did that. And then we did the next one with some salt. I used my Celtic sea salt because it is a bigger, coarser salt. So when topping it on, it just ended up being so cool. So I added my sea salt on the other loaf. And then on my third loaf that I made, we just did the everything bagel seasoning, and that actually turned out really good. It tasted like garlic bread, and you didn't even have to add like butter and toast it or nothing. It was perfect. So you go ahead and bake that. Once you have that baked, this is what your delicious bread will look like. It was so good. The house smelled so delicious. But look at that. Isn't that beautiful? And look how easy that was, and look how easy it comes off. It was just so awesome. You can cut this and slice it into slices. You can also pull it apart. We gave one to our neighbor, and she was so excited to have it. She told me it only took her an hour to eat it. Crazy how that worked out. But look at the color. Look at the bottom. It just glistens. You see what I mean about the egg yolk? It just turns your bread into something like artwork. It's just so awesome. This challah bread was such an amazing recipe, and by adding the egg and the butter into this recipe versus a standard bread recipe, it really did change the flavor and texture of it, and I was so excited. That bread was actually really bouncy. So here, as you can see, I'm showing you, you can just pull it apart. Kind of reminds me of those twisty donuts. And then you can also just take you a nice serrated knife or a bread knife, and you can also cut it into slices. Look how pillowy that is. And when you squish it, it would just come right back up. It was so good. This bread was absolutely amazing. And unlike other loaves of bread, you don't have to let it sit or rest for 2 or 3 hours before you slice it. You can slice right into it. I went ahead and used it and put some butter on it just to try it. Of course, I went for the everything bagel, so I got that delicious garlic. OMG, it was to die for. Well, there you go, delicious challah bread. Keep tuned in because we have some wonderful photos for you of Myrtle Beach, South Carolina here at the end.
Those who sow in tears shall reap in joy. Psalm 126, verse 5.
And as always, promised beautiful photos of Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. We thank you for being here on Cooking with Kayla D. If you haven't done so, please subscribe to our channel, like our videos. By subscribing, you're helping our community to grow, and by liking them, you're actually helping us put our channel into the algorithm so that YouTube plays our videos more and more people can see them. We greatly appreciate it. So here on the left, you can subscribe to our channel, and for more delicious recipes, you can click this link here on the right. As always, we say, stay in that kitchen and keep on cooking. God bless. Until next time, goodbye and Merry Christmas.